Persuasion is not about truth. It is about power. Logic whispers. Emotion roars. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone when he declared, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." If you've ever wondered why men follow liars, why nations obey tyrants, why crowds march for causes they barely understand, the answer is brutal. Persuasion is never about facts. Facts are weak. Persuasion is about control, about twisting perception until others choose your will as if it were their own. Today, I will hand you 7 ruthless laws of persuasion, not tricks, not shallow techniques, but iron laws, unchanging, merciless, and devastatingly effective. By the end, you will not simply know persuasion, you will wield it. You will learn to seize hearts, enslave minds, cloak yourself in authority before it exists, chain men with debt, starve them into worship, unleash the herd as your weapon, lock them with their own commitments, and finally, recast reality itself. So I ask you, will you politely convince, or will you command obedience? Will you remain a voice in the crowd, or become the master who makes the crowd roar your name? Because once you master these 7 laws of persuasion, you will not merely influence, you will dominate. Seize the heart, enslave the mind. Power does not flow through reason, logic whispers, emotion roars. If you wish to bend men, never aim for their minds, for the mind is a chained dog. Aim for the heart, grip it, twist it, possess it. Once the heart bows, the mind crawls behind. Reason is brittle, fragile, a glass blade that shatters in the clash. Facts do not ignite obedience, but fear does, pride does, desire does. Cold truth persuades no one, passion conquers all. And yet, you still cling to reason. You still worship logic like a fool kneeling before a broken idol. You recite statistics, build arguments, pile facts into endless towers of weakness. You believe truth will defend itself. Pathetic. Men do not rise for truth. They rise for fire. They march for glory. They kill for fear. To argue with logic is to duel with smoke, empty, weightless, invisible. Machiavelli knew better. It is much safer to be feared than loved. Why? Because love is borrowed. It lives in the hearts of others, shifting like sand, vanishing without warning. Fear, however, is yours, yours to summon, yours to wield, yours to weaponize. Fear is not an idea. Fear is not a theory. Fear is a trembling hand, a sleepless night, a racing heartbeat when the silence feels too loud. Fear drowns reason in its tide. He who commands fear does not negotiate, he dictates. He who wields fear does not persuade, he rules. Look at the world around you. Customers buy not because logic tells them, but because they dread missing out. They do not seek products, they seek protection from loss. Employees follow not because the leader is correct, but because he makes them feel untouchable, proud, chosen. Voters do not choose policies, they choose emotions, anger at an enemy, hope for a better dawn, pride in their tribe. Emotion is the silent general that commands every army, every crowd, every follower. If you would rule, weaponize it. Stoke the fear of loss until it burns hotter than reason. Inflate their hunger for status until it blinds them. Feed their desperation for hope until they mistake chains for salvation. Wrap every number, every fact, every truth in an emotional blade sharp enough to cut through doubt. Do not explain when you can terrify. Do not argue when you can inspire. Do not persuade when you can inflame. Passion does not debate. Passion kills and leaves no survivors. Control the heart, and the world bends with the mind it enslaves. Machiavelli would never drown men in explanations. He would not lecture with logic. He would cloak his weakness in hope. his ambition in pride, his cruelty in necessity. If he wished to tax his people, he would not speak of revenue. He would speak of enemies at the gates, of survival at stake, of sacrifice as honor. If he wished to silence dissent, he would not argue with rebels. He would terrify them, make the cost of defiance unbearable. If he wished to command loyalty, he would wrap his rule in pride, convincing men that serving him was a mark of greatness. And when his people obeyed, they would believe it was their decision. They would think it was their love, their pride, their fear that guided them. They would never realize it was his hand, pulling the strings, twisting the heart, enslaving the mind. Because this is the law. Once you master emotion, the world itself dances on your leash. Here is the first law, the law of emotional leverage.
Hey guys, we're Strategy, based in Abu Dhabi. We use AI tools to make these concepts come to life, but it's our amazing team who goes deep, breaking down powerful philosophical ideas and showing how they really apply in everyday life. We hope you enjoyed today's content.
Wear the crown before it is even forged. One command from authority silences 100 debates. Men do not bow to reason. They bow to symbols. They obey crowns, uniforms, titles, seals, alliances, even if these masks hide hollow power. The illusion of command often crushes more resistance than command itself. And yet, you beg with logic. You present your case as an equal. Fool. Equals do not silence rooms. Equals do not command obedience. Equals drown in noise. Your words weigh nothing because your presence weighs nothing. You walk into the room unnoticed. You speak, and your voice dissolves into the crowd. Why? Because you lack the aura, the theater, the sovereign mask that forces men to halt and acknowledge. Without authority, you are a whisper trying to outshout a storm. Machiavelli understood this truth through his dark idol, Cesare Borgia. Borgia did not merely conquer with soldiers, he conquered with theater. He staged magnificence. He cloaked himself in symbols. He bestowed titles. He eliminated rivals in public spectacle. His enemies bowed not to his weapons, but to the appearance of divinity. Authority is not always owned. It is performed. The world has not changed. A suit commands more than rags. A stage commands more eyes than a whisper. Logos, endorsements, alliances, credentials. Each is a crown borrowed, each bending men to your will. They never ask if the crown is real. They kneel the instant they see it. If you would command, manufacture authority. Signal expertise with credentials. Borrow weight from alliances. Cloak your weakness with the prestige of others. Above all, command, presence, your tone, your silence, your posture. Each must announce a simple fact. You are not equal. You are sovereign. It is not enough to be powerful. You must appear untouchable. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never wait for legitimacy to be handed to him. He would seize it. He would commission symbols. He would invent titles. He would surround himself with power until even doubters were forced to kneel. He would never argue for authority. He would stage it until the illusion became reality. Machiavelli would step into the room already crowned, already enthroned, already obeyed. He knew that power flows not to the one who is right, but to the one who looks inevitable. He would wear the crown before it was forged, and by wearing it, make it impossible to strip away. Master your bearing, and you command others before speaking. Project sovereignty, and the world delivers obedience without question. Internal mastery of presence creates external domination of men. Rule yourself, and every room you enter will kneel. Here is the second law, the law of manufactured authority. Give the chain, make them clasp it themselves. Men are not free. They are slaves to debt. A gift is not kindness. It is a shackle. A favor is not generosity. It is a leash. Gratitude binds more tightly than fear. A calculated offering enslaves more completely than the sharpest threat. But you demand loyalty without planting obligation. You expect allegiance without first forging debt. How pitiful, how naive. You forget the oldest law of power. Men are not bound by promises, but by burdens. They are prisoners of conscience. They will repay what they owe, even when repayment destroys them. And when you demand loyalty without giving them the weight of obligation, you leave their hands free to betray you. Machiavelli saw this clearly in Cesare Borgia. His rule did not rest on terror alone. It rested on generosity sharpened into chains. He disarmed enemies not just with fear, but with gifts, titles, offices, wealth. They accepted his offerings with smiles, and in that acceptance, surrendered themselves. Their ambition became his leash. Their greed became his prison. As Machiavelli warned, men forget more quickly the death of a father than the loss of a patrimony. Hurt a man, and he may forgive. Indebt him, and he belongs to you. And so it is today. The one who gives first owns the other. A mentor's small favor makes a man a disciple for years. A rival's concession makes you hesitate before striking back. Every free gift is not charity, it is command. Men call it kindness. In truth, it is control. If you wish to rule, then give. But give with calculation. Offer gifts small enough to be accepted, heavy enough to obligate. Recognize others publicly so they are forced to repay in loyalty. In negotiations, concede the trivial, only to demand the vital later. Remember, every gift is a collar, every kindness a leash. He who gives first rules twice. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never give out of warmth. He would give to ensnare. He would elevate enemies into high office, then chain them with gratitude. He would cloak daggers as favors, chains as honors, prisons as gifts, each offering a calculated trap. Machiavelli would never beg for obedience. He would make you deliver it. He would watch as you bowed willingly, smiling, believing it was your choice. And in the end, you would guard his throne as if it were your own, never realizing that the gift you accepted was the cage you built. Because this is the law. Internal mastery of restraint in giving creates external mastery in ruling. When you learn to give with calculation, you stop creating friends and start creating prisoners. Here is the third law, the law of enslavement through debt. Starve them, make them crawl to your table. Abundance breeds indifference. Men do not crave what is always within reach. They lust only for what slips away. Scarcity inflates value. What is rare becomes sacred. What is common becomes trash. And yet, you give too freely. You flood them with access. You mistake generosity for loyalty. You mistake visibility for power. Fool. The more they see you, the less they value you. The more you give, the more invisible you become. Pathetic. You confuse presence with influence, when in truth, your constant presence makes you forgettable, common, disposable. Machiavelli warned rulers never to grow too familiar with their people, lest they breed contempt. He observed, men more quickly forget the death of a father than the loss of a patrimony. Loss burns deeper than death. Scarcity cuts sharper than grief. A prince who rations himself becomes more coveted than gold. Distance breeds desire. Scarcity breeds worship. Look at the modern world. Why do luxury brands sell out in minutes? Why do mobs battle for limited tickets when the event itself is nothing? Because men fear loss more than they value gain. Scarcity is not economics. Scarcity is psychology. Scarcity is control. If you would command, then starve them. restrict access, create waiting lists, exclusivity, forbidden doors, impose deadlines, urgency drives surrender, withhold yourself, let distance inflate your worth, let silence sharpen your presence. Absence will make you sacred. They will crawl not because of what you give, but because of what you deny. What is rare is worshipped. What is common is despised. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never waste himself in abundance. He would ration his presence like a relic of the gods, appearing rarely, but with weight. He would starve men until his every word seemed divine. He would vanish until they begged for his return, then descend like a vision, untouchable, immortal. This is the discipline. Restrain your need to be seen, and you force the world to kneel when you appear. Internal mastery of absence creates external mastery of desire. He who withholds himself commands hunger. He who commands hunger commands men. Here is the fourth law, the law of weaponized scarcity. Rule the herd, and the herd will trample the world for you. When men are uncertain, they do not search for truth. They search for numbers. The crowd itself becomes their compass. 10 voices create doubt. 10,000 voices create reality. The herd does not follow reason. The herd manufactures its own truth. And once it moves, it does not walk. It stampedes, crushing everything in its path. And yet, you speak alone. You believe your solitary voice carries weight. Pitiful. Alone, your words are fragile, brittle, easily ignored. Men do not trust the solitary. They ask, if this is true, why does no one else follow it? And with that, your truth dies. Not because it was false, but because it had no echo. Alone truth is powerless. Machiavelli understood this well. He wrote, "He who becomes ruler with the support of the people has more secure foundation. A prince propped up by the multitude is untouchable. The roar of the masses transforms will into inevitability. Their noise alone can turn commands into destiny. The modern world is no different. Men bow to reviews, not to facts. They kneel before followers, endorsements, testimonials, trending movements. One man's claim is suspect. 1,000 men's chant is law. Social proof has become the new army. Endorsements are its shields. Followers are its swords. Numbers are its banners. If you wish to dominate, build the herd. Manufacture visible followers. Parade endorsements. Showcase testimonials. Project inevitability with numbers. Speak in absolutes. Everyone is joining. Thousands already obey. Never stand naked in isolation. Always surround yourself with the thunder of the mob. For the herd is not just your protection, it is your weapon. One man's voice is ignored. 1,000 voices become law. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never speak in solitude. He would create the illusion of overwhelming support. He would fill halls with cheering crowds, even if paid. He would flood letters with endorsements, even if forged. He would stamp decrees with the mark of the people, even if the people had no voice. He would turn a handful of followers into the appearance of a multitude, and the multitude would become truth. Machiavelli knew men do not want to be first. They want to be part of the winning side. So he would appear unstoppable. He would appear inevitable. His words would echo through the masses until no one dared question him. He would not simply lead the herd. He would enslave it. And once enslaved, he would make it rule for him. Because this is the law. Internal mastery of perception allows you to conjure armies from shadows, control the illusion of numbers, and you control reality itself. Here is the fifth law, the law of manipulated multitudes. Lock the door and make them turn the key themselves. Once a man declares his stance, he becomes its prisoner. Humans are not guided by reason. They are enslaved by their need to appear consistent. Once they say yes, once they take a step, pride shackles them. They are bound not for you, but for their own vanity. And yet you demand too much, too soon. You ask for grand leaps of loyalty. You push for oaths too heavy, promises too vast, and they recoil, they hesitate, they flee. Weakness in you creates freedom in them. You fail to see the truth. The smallest yes is the strongest chain. A whisper of agreement, a trivial pledge, a minor concession, once spoken, becomes a cage they dare not break. Machiavelli understood the treachery of men. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers, and yet even such vermin can be bound. How? By their own words. Once entangled, they keep promises not from loyalty, but from fear of shame, not from honor, but from pride. A prince secures allegiance not only with swords, but by forcing men to defend their past obedience. Their vanity becomes their prison. Their pride becomes your chains. Look at the modern world. A simple click of "I agree," a petty signature on a petition, a casual post of support on social media. Each one ties a man's identity to his choice. Soon he must defend it, protect it, live it. His pride forbids retreat. What begins as a whisper becomes a vow. What begins as a step becomes a march into your service. If you would rule, never demand the leap, demand the step. Collect the nod, the pledge, the token of agreement. Escalate gradually. Each small concession forces the next, until they march willingly into your chains. And always make it public. When men know others are watching, they will cling to their commitments, even if it drags them to ruin. Give them the script, and they will play the role until death. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never demand loyalty outright. He would seduce it in fragments. He would lure men into harmless declarations, each one a strand in a net. He would make them repeat their allegiance, display it, defend it, until escape would shatter their pride. And pride for men is dearer than freedom. Machiavelli would let them lock the door themselves. He would smile as they turned the key, believing it was their choice. In truth, it was his hand guiding theirs. And once the lock clicked shut, they would guard the cell. They would worship the chains, never realizing that the prison they defended was the one they built. Because this is the law. Internal mastery of patience in persuasion creates external mastery of loyalty. Learn to harvest small commitments, and you will own men forever. Here is the sixth law, the law of self-forged chains. They frame the world, or be buried inside another man's frame. Reality is not truth. It is perception. Men do not believe what is. They believe what is presented. Whoever shapes the lens controls the truth. Whoever defines the stage dictates the play. And yet, you spit out facts nakedly. You vomit truth raw, foolishly believing it will defend itself. Pathetic. Truth alone is weak. Naked facts are daggers that cut the hands of their wielder. You hand victories to rivals because you let them shape the story around your facts. Even in triumph, you appear defeated. Even in success, you look small. You fail not because you lacked truth, but because you lacked framing. Machiavelli warned rulers that virtue itself was unnecessary. What mattered was the appearance of virtue. It is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but very necessary to appear to have them. The frame outweighs the fact. The illusion crushes the substance. Appearances command obedience long after reality is forgotten. This is the world you live in. Losses are reframed as strategic retreats. Failures are repackaged as learning curves. Mass firings are disguised as restructuring. Tyrants do not strangle liberty, they preserve stability. Words are not labels, words are weapons. Whoever frames first writes reality, and reality obeys him. If you would dominate, you must seize the frame. Recast weakness as necessity. Forge disadvantage into destiny. Define the comparisons before your rival dares to speak. Control the standards of success and failure. Then crown yourself victor before the contest begins. Above all, speak first. He who frames first defines the battlefield, and he who defines the battlefield already holds the crown. Facts are powerless. Frames rule the world. And what would Machiavelli do? He would never allow truth to stand naked. He would cloak cruelty as justice. He would rebrand greed as necessity. He would sanctify betrayal as destiny. He would let his rivals drown in truth while he ruled perception. He understood men do not follow reality, they follow the story. And he would write that story with his own hand. Machiavelli would never fight on the barren field of reality. He would redraw the map, rename the war, rewrite the victory. Before the first arrow flew, he would already be crowned. He knew. Those who master the frame do not just guide perception, they forge empires. This is the discipline. Master your words, your appearances, your narratives. Internal mastery of framing your own life creates external mastery of how the world bends around you. He who frames himself commands himself. He who frames others commands nations. Here is the seventh law, the law of reality forged.
Thanks for spending time with us. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the original books and resources we used today. We'll see you in the next one.